Welcome to another edition of the Insider Mailbag. I'm Jarret Johnson, and I'm flying solo today. Mighty Joe is homesick, and he's got a bad flu, but to tell you what kind of a gamer Mighty Joe is, man, he still went up to the Sunday availability. He wrote those Yeager shots, and I mean, he's been fever. I mean, he's called in sick from his, his day job. So let's hope Mighty Joe gets well soon, so that it could be both of us, not just me here answering your questions. But the first one comes from Panther Cat. He wants to know, is Joe and I growing a beard to support the team? No, I can't grow like a beard that looks right. It just looks scuzzy, to be honest. No matter, even if it's just, I've tried like for over a week, and it doesn't look right. It doesn't look like how it's supposed to. So a beard on me just is a no-go. I don't know about Mighty Joe. Maybe he's homesick. He's got the beard going, so we'll have to see when on Saturday for the game against West Virginia if he's got that full beard. All right, Joey82 wants to know, how many defensive stops do we think are necessary for Tech to get the W? Well, you know what? They got 9 against Houston, and then, I mean, they shut them out. They shut Oklahoma State out in the second half with one of the most impressive defensive performance in recent history from a Red Raider football team. I mean, the fact that they held them to only 91 total yards there at Oklahoma State against, a team that had just really gotten after you. It's been a prolific offense for years under Mike Gundy there, and your defense was able to do that. That was impressive. So as far as West Virginia, I think you're going to have to get a couple of turnovers, I believe. And Will Grier, who's a very good quarterback, one of the best in the country, if not the best quarterback in the country, has shown a penchant for turning the ball over, though, because he's one of those guys who's very, very confident in his arm. He's already thrown 3 interceptions this season in just 3 games. So the Red Raiders are going to have to capitalize on that and force a couple turnovers, because as good as they played last week against Oklahoma State, I don't know if they'll be able to duplicate that success. Now, one thing that I do really like so far from the Red Raiders this year is they've gotten better as the game's gone along. I mean, as evidenced last week with the shutout of Oklahoma State, but also against Houston, they did a lot better in the second half than they did the first half. And I think some of that is depth. They have more depth than they have really since I can remember on that side of the ball. But also, I mean, you got to tip the cap to some of the adjustments that David Gibbs and his staff have done. I mean, I really like how they've been bringing pressure. I thought coming into the season that they couldn't sit back and play that kind of defense, kind of the bend but don't break defense. They needed to attack and force the issue some. And we're starting to see that, and especially in the second half, which has been impressive. So hopefully that will continue. So to answer your question, I'm going to say turnovers and everything combined, I'm going to say 9 is a good number. I think both teams are going to be up tempo at times, fast pace. So I think 9 stops altogether would get you the W for the Red Raiders. From Sitex wants to know, he says, last week he asked if we had at least added food coloring to the water. Follow-up question, are we now full-blown Kool-Aid drinkers? I'm getting there. I'm not going to lie. In our weekly rapid-fire roundtable discussion, one of the questions that was posed was, do we believe Texas Tech is a Big 12 contender? And I tell you what, I'm not ready to say that because I want to see how they handle success. There have been times in the past this program has come up with a big monumental win but not really been able to build on it. And you have a heck of an opportunity, obviously, with number 12 West Virginia coming to town. So will the Red Raiders be able to build on that, on this momentum they have going? Now, even if they lose, I'm not ready to say, oh, they're not a contender. That's not what I'm saying. It's not a win or loss thing. I'm just saying, do they show up ready to play? Do they look the part? Are they competitive in the game? And then obviously if they win, then heck yeah, they're contenders. Absolutely. And I think one of the things that really grabbed my attention was ESPN has that kind of stat analysis where they predict statistically who's going to be favored throughout the season. And I think Tech is favored now in every game except for Oklahoma. So that's pretty impressive. And that tells you, yeah, Texas Tech will probably be a contender and this team's worth drinking Kool-Aid on. Tech Freak says, Kansas City versus Denver, Mahomes versus Keenum, NFL Kingsbury Bowl 1. Who you got? I got Mahomes, man. I'm going to... Nobody is a bigger fan of Patrick Mahomes than I am, other than maybe his family members. All the way back to the recruiting process, he's one of the first recruits I ever interviewed when I took this job back in the day, and he was just a junior at White House. He does the amazing on the regular. I heard one of his old teammates, Jake Parker, in a feature, I think it was on Fox, a feature on Mahomes, say that he's normalized the amazing play. And I think that's just an amazing, that's a perfect description for it. Patrick Mahomes has normalized the amazing play. Every week we would see something that blew our minds with Patrick Mahomes. And I tell you what, he's in a perfect situation there in Kansas City. He has just a number of weapons to distribute the ball to, a good offensive line. Andy Reid is a great offensive coach, a proven offensive coach, great quarterback coach. So Kansas City's dealing right now. So I got Kansas City over Denver. I got Mahomes winning the matchup against Keenum, no doubt. All right, the next question comes from Cobb Honies. He wants to know, or he says, the Oklahoma State game was impressive all the way around, but what does Tech need to do better to win against West Virginia? You know, in going back and looking at that game, the defense played great. And I'm not taking anything away from that performance, but they're going to be facing a much better quarterback in Will Grier than Taylor Cornelius. There were some times where it was obvious Cornelius got rattled, and I don't know if Grier's going to be rattled. I mean, he's a much more experienced guy. There were some times receivers were running opens, and Taylor Cornelius just missed them. So I don't know if that's really going to happen with Will Grier. So they need to tighten up the coverage in the secondary a little bit more, which this may be the obvious answer, but that's what I have. They need to do that in order to spring the upset against West Virginia. Tech Tier 1, this is a final question here from Tech Tier 1. The Cliff Kingsbury era is famous for deflating the last half of a season. What is different now? That's a great question, and that's something that honestly I'm going to be watching. But I will say what is different, I've been saying this all offseason. I saw it in the spring and even more so in the fall when they added a lot of players who we've seen contribute, but they are much deeper than they have been throughout Kingsbury's tenure here at Texas Tech. The whole grown men thing you've heard me say on the radio, on Rock 101.1 FM, and then also over and over again on the site. I got so tired of them just throwing the lambs out to the wolves, the young freshmen against developed Power 5 football players. That is no longer the case. They have veterans, guys who have been there, they've been on the road, they've been in big games at the Jones, they've gone against some of the best in the country, position by position. So I think this team not only has the ability and the experience, but it just, in the battle of just attrition, they have the depth to compete with some of these other Big 12 schools for the first time in the Kingsbury era. So that being said, they have to do it. They do face Texas and Oklahoma and all that in the second half. They have road tests against Iowa State and Kansas State. They both look very down right now, but it's always been tough to play there, even when they are down. So they're going to be tested, but I think for the first time in a while, the Red Raiders have the depth to compete. But hey, great questions from y'all as always. Hopefully Mighty Joe will be back next week, so you'll get both of our input. But thank y'all for watching, and until next time.